There is a distinct, quiet magic to walking out into your backyard garden early in the morning, holding a warm mug of coffee, and watching the first rays of sunlight hit your vegetable beds. But that peaceful moment can instantly turn into heartbreak when you look closer at your prized tomato plants. You notice the leaves are riddled with jagged holes and glistening, slimy trails run up the stems. Upon closer inspection, you find them, thick gray slugs clinging to the undersides of the leaves, slowly devouring weeks of your hard work. In that moment of frustration, your gaze might naturally drift down to the coffee mug in your hand. You know that coffee grounds are highly praised in the gardening community, and the temptation to dump those warm, wet leftovers right onto the soil is incredibly strong. Most gardeners don't know this, but doing that is actually one of the quickest ways to stunt your plants, invite devastating root rot, and ruin your soil structure. While coffee grounds are indeed a goldmine of organic nutrition, using them incorrectly creates a physical and biological trap for your garden. When you dump wet, fresh coffee grounds directly onto the soil, they don't simply dissolve and feed the roots. Instead, they clump together as they dry, forming a thick, crusty, impermeable barrier on the surface of your garden bed. This crust acts like a layer of weak concrete, sealing off the soil. It prevents fresh rainwater from soaking down to the roots and blocks vital oxygen from circulating in the root zone. What happens next surprised me when I first observed it in my own backyard years ago. Underneath that wet, compacted layer of coffee grounds, a dark, suffocating environment is created. This anaerobic environment is the perfect breeding ground for destructive fungal pathogens, such as Pythium and Phytophthora, which cause root rot and damping off disease. Instead of helping your tomatoes grow, you end up suffocating the roots, causing the lower leaves to turn a sickly yellow and fall off. Furthermore, raw, wet coffee grounds are highly attractive to certain molds. Within days, a thick carpet of fuzzy blue-green mold can spread across the base of your plants, competing with the soil's natural biology and locking up the very nutrients you were trying to provide. To truly unlock the power of this kitchen waste, we have to understand the science of the coffee bean. The coffee bean is actually the seed of a tropical fruit, packed with concentrated energy and essential minerals meant to support a growing seedling. Even after the brewing process extracts the flavors and oils for your morning cup, about 80% of the bean's original nutritional value remains locked inside the structural fibers of the spent grounds. These grounds are incredibly rich in nitrogen, which is the primary driver of leafy green growth and overall plant vigor. They also contain significant amounts of potassium, which regulates water movement and activates enzymes within the plant, as well as magnesium, the central atom in the chlorophyll molecule that allows plants to convert sunlight into energy. Here's where the real secret begins. These nutrients are bound up in complex organic compounds that the plant cannot absorb in their raw state. Plants do not have digestive systems. They rely on soil microbes, beneficial fungi, and earthworms to break down organic matter into simple, water-soluble ions that their roots can easily drink in. When used correctly, coffee grounds act as a slow-release fuel source that feeds these beneficial soil microbes, which in turn feed your plants. The trick lies in preparing the grounds so that they encourage healthy microbial activity rather than inviting harmful mold and soil compaction. When you master this preparation, you will see a profound shift in your garden's health, starting from the ground up. This is the step many people skip because it requires a little bit of patience, but it is the absolute foundation of success. Before a single grain of coffee touches your garden soil, it must be thoroughly and completely dried. When you empty your coffee filter, the grounds are saturated with moisture, creating a prime habitat for mold spores to colonize. To prevent this, you need to spread the wet grounds out in a thin, even layer on a flat surface. A large baking sheet lined with parchment paper or newspaper works beautifully for this. You can place the tray in a sunny, well-ventilated spot outdoors or leave it on a windowsill for a couple of days. If you are dealing with humid weather, you can even pop the tray into your oven at its lowest temperature setting, around 150 degrees Fahrenheit, for about 30 minutes to dry them out completely. Once the grounds are dry, they should feel light, powdery, and crumble easily between your fingertips without clumping. At this point, they are completely stable and can be stored in an airtight container indefinitely, ready to be used whenever your garden needs a boost. This simple act of drying completely changes how the grounds interact with the soil, preventing compaction and allowing them to mix smoothly with other organic materials. Now that you have your perfectly dried coffee grounds, you can create a powerful, gentle liquid fertilizer that old school gardeners refer to as liquid gold. Instead of applying the dry powder directly to the soil, where it might still clump if watered heavily, you can brew a cold infusion tea. To do this, simply measure out 2 tablespoons of your dried coffee grounds and add them to 1 liter of clean chlorine-free water. If you are using tap water, it is a good idea to let it sit out in an open bucket for 24 hours beforehand to allow any residual chlorine to dissipate, as chlorine can harm the beneficial soil microbes we want to encourage. Stir the mixture thoroughly so the dry grounds are fully submerged, and then let it sit in a cool, shaded spot for about 24 hours. During this quiet soaking period, a beautiful chemical reaction takes place. The water gently coaxes the soluble nitrogen, potassium, and magnesium out of the cell walls of the coffee grounds, dissolving them into a mild, easily absorbable liquid solution. This process mimics the natural decay of organic matter in a forest floor, where gentle rains wash nutrients down into the root zone over time. It prevents the nutrient shock that can sometimes occur with synthetic chemical fertilizers, which can burn delicate root tips and cause sudden, weak, watery growth that attracts pests. After 24 hours of steeping, stir the mixture once more to ensure that any settled nutrients are evenly distributed throughout the liquid. You will notice the water has turned a rich, amber-brown color, smelling faintly of earth and toasted wood. This natural nutrient solution is now fully primed and ready to feed your garden, but before you pour a single drop onto your plants, you must prepare the soil to receive it. Most people make the mistake of pouring fertilizers onto dry, hard-crusted soil, which causes the liquid to simply run off the surface and away from the plant. Instead, take a small hand fork or a sturdy stick and gently loosen the top half-inch of soil around the base of your plants. This is a delicate operation. You only want to break up the surface crust to improve aeration and create tiny pathways for the liquid to penetrate. Be extremely careful not to dig too deeply or disturb the shallow, fine feeder roots that grow near the surface, as these roots are responsible for absorbing the majority of the plant's water and nutrients. Once the soil is lightly loosened, slowly pour the liquid solution around the root zone, about 6 inches away from the main stem, allowing the earth to drink it in like a dry sponge. The results became visible just days later in my own garden, and the transformation was nothing short of remarkable. Within a week of the first application, the pale, tired-looking leaves of my tomato plants began to deepen into a rich, vibrant forest green. This rapid color change is a direct result of the highly bioavailable nitrogen and magnesium in the coffee tea, which allows the plants to produce more chlorophyll and photosynthesize at a much higher rate. But the benefits go far deeper than just visual aesthetics. As the liquid drains down, it stimulates the native earthworm population. Earthworms are naturally drawn to the organic residues of coffee, and as they tunnel through the soil to consume it, they leave behind nutrient-rich castings and create deep aeration channels that allow the plant roots to expand effortlessly. To get the absolute most out of this method, you need to know how to read your plant's subtle signals. Plants are incredibly expressive. They will tell you exactly what they lack if you know what to look for. For instance, if your tomatoes or peppers are suffering from a nitrogen deficiency, you will notice the oldest, lowest leaves on the plant turning a uniform pale yellow, while the overall growth of the plant stalls. If they are lacking magnesium, you will see a classic pattern called intervenal chlorosis, where the tissue between the leaf veins turns yellow while the veins themselves remain a sharp, dark green. A phosphorus deficiency often manifests as a distinct purplish or bronze tint on the undersides of the leaves, accompanied by poor root development and a lack of blossoms. By applying this mild coffee ground solution once a week, you provide a steady, reliable stream of these key minerals, preventing these nutritional deficiencies before they can take hold. However, consistency and moderation are the true keys to success here. Because coffee grounds are slightly acidic, overusing them can gradually lower your soil's pH over time, especially in sandy soils with low buffering capacity. If the soil becomes too acidic, it can lock up other essential nutrients like calcium and phosphorus, leading to stunted growth and poor fruit production. Limiting your application to just once a week ensures your plants receive all the benefits of the organic matter and minerals without disrupting the delicate chemical balance of the soil. But what about those destructive, slimy slugs that we started with? This is where the physical properties of dried coffee grounds come into play as a natural line of defense. Slugs have soft, highly sensitive bodies that are composed mostly of water, and they rely on a constant layer of moist mucus to move across the ground. When you sprinkle a thin, even ring of completely dry coffee grounds around the base of your plants, keeping the ring about 3 to 4 inches away from the main stem, you create an incredibly hostile barrier for them. The dry, jagged, microscopic edges of the ground coffee particles act like tiny shards of glass to a slug's delicate skin. As they attempt to crawl over the barrier, the dry grounds cling to their slimy bodies, rapidly absorbing their moisture and causing intense irritation. Furthermore, coffee naturally contains caffeine, which is actually a plant defense mechanism designed to repel or paralyze herbivorous insects. Slugs are highly sensitive to caffeine, and the scent alone is often enough to make them turn around and look for an easier meal elsewhere. However, it is important to remember that this is not a permanent silver bullet solution for eliminating slugs entirely. If a heavy rainstorm hits, the coffee barrier will become wet, losing its abrasive, dehydrating qualities. To maintain a truly slug-resistant garden, you must combine this barrier method with good cultural practices. Keep your garden beds well ventilated by pruning the lower leaves of your tomato plants to allow air to circulate freely. Avoid watering your garden late in the evening, which leaves the soil surface damp right when slugs become active at night. Instead, water deeply in the early morning so the surface soil has plenty of time to dry out under the afternoon sun. While tomatoes and peppers absolutely thrive on this coffee ground regimen, there is another backyard favorite that benefits even more when we take this method a step further. Cucumbers are notoriously heavy feeders, requiring a vast amount of energy, water, and specific minerals to produce those crisp, sweet, juicy fruits we love to harvest in the heat of summer. But cucumbers have a highly sensitive root system and are prone to several structural and physiological issues, such as hollow hearts, misshapen fruits, and a bitter taste that can ruin an entire harvest. The secret to growing flawless, abundant cucumbers lies in combining your dried coffee grounds with another common kitchen waste product that most people toss into the trash without a second thought: eggshells. When you combine these two ingredients, you create a powerhouse synergistic mixture that targets the specific nutritional needs of cucumber plants. While coffee grounds provide the organic nitrogen, potassium, and magnesium needed for robust vine growth and large, healthy leaves, eggshells provide an abundant, natural source of calcium. Calcium is the unsung hero of the vegetable garden. It acts as the structural glue that binds plant cell walls together, giving the vines the strength to climb trellises and support the weight of heavy fruits. Without adequate calcium, cucumber plants can develop a condition similar to blossom end rot in tomatoes, where the blossom end of the fruit turns soft, yellow, and eventually rots away. Calcium deficiency also leads to weak, brittle stems that easily snap in the wind, and young leaves that emerge curled, distorted, and stunted. But here is the catch that many well-meaning gardeners miss. Simply tossing raw eggshell halves into your garden bed does almost nothing for your plants in the short term. Eggshells are incredibly tough, and if left whole, they can take several years to break down in the soil to a point where the calcium becomes soluble and available to plant roots. To make this calcium immediately useful, you must prepare the eggshells with the same care as your coffee grounds. First, rinse your empty eggshells thoroughly with clean water to remove any residual egg white, which can attract pests and create unpleasant odors. Next, spread them out on a baking sheet and bake them in your oven at 200 degrees Fahrenheit for about 10 to 15 minutes. This baking step serves two vital purposes. It completely sterilizes the shells, eliminating any potential pathogens like salmonella, and it makes the shells incredibly brittle. Once they are baked, place the shells into a blender, a clean coffee grinder, or use a mortar and pestle to crush them into an incredibly fine, flour-like powder. The finer the powder, the greater the surface area, allowing the natural acids in the soil and the organic matter in the coffee grounds to rapidly break down the calcium carbonate, making it available to your cucumber roots within weeks rather than years. To apply this custom blend, mix 1 to 2 tablespoons of your dried coffee grounds with 1 to 2 tablespoons of your finely powdered eggshells for each cucumber plant. Gently sprinkle this beautiful speckled mixture in a wide circle around the base of the plant, keeping it about 10 to 15 centimeters away from the main stem to avoid any direct contact that could cause moisture retention against the vine. Using a hand cultivator, lightly scratch the mixture into the top quarter-inch of the soil and then water the area gently but thoroughly. As the water filters down through the soil, the nitrogen from the coffee grounds and the calcium from the eggshells begin to work in perfect harmony. The coffee grounds help to loosen the surrounding soil, increasing aeration and allowing the cucumber's shallow, sensitive roots to spread out and breathe. At the same time, the steady supply of calcium strengthens the cell walls of those roots, making them highly resistant to soil-borne diseases and allowing them to absorb water and other nutrients much more efficiently. After a short while, you will begin to notice a dramatic shift in your cucumber patch. The vines will grow with incredible vigor, producing strong, thick stems and broad, dark green leaves that capture maximum sunlight. You will see an abundance of bright yellow blossoms opening up, followed by the development of perfectly shaped, uniform cucumbers. Because the roots are receiving a consistent, balanced supply of nutrients and moisture, the fruits will grow rapidly and evenly, completely free of the bitterness or watery, hollow centers that plague so many home gardens. It is incredibly rewarding to realize that the key to a bountiful, pest-free harvest doesn't lie in expensive, chemical-heavy store-bought products, but rather in the simple, thoughtful repurposing of things we use every single day in our kitchens. By taking just a little extra time to dry your coffee grounds, brew a gentle nutrient tea, and combine them with finely powdered eggshells, you are working in harmony with nature's own cycles. You are feeding the soil biology, which in turn builds a resilient, thriving ecosystem right in your backyard. If you found these practical, time-tested gardening secrets helpful and want to bring this natural vitality to your own backyard, please leave a heart in the comments below and share your own experiences with using kitchen leftovers in your garden. I would love to hear how your plants respond to these methods. And if you want to continue discovering simple, highly effective, and deeply rewarding ways to grow your own abundant organic food, make sure to subscribe and follow along for more practical gardening wisdom. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today, and happy gardening.